Dr. Marina Caldwell pressed her palm against the cold steel of the particle accelerator's control panel, feeling the subtle vibration that meant the machine was alive, humming with enough energy to tear holes in the fabric of space itself. The Geneva facility stretched out before her like a cathedral of science, its curved walls disappearing into shadows that seemed deeper than they should be. Temperature holding at minus 171 degrees Celsius, called out her research partner, Dr. James Thornfield, his voice echoing in the vast chamber. Field strength at 97% maximum. We're ready for the next phase. Marina nodded. But something felt wrong. She'd been running these experiments for 3 years now, pushing the boundaries of what the standard model claimed was possible, the Higgs field. They called it the invisible ocean of energy that gave mass to every particle in the universe. But Marina had begun to suspect it was more than that. Much more. James, run the diagnostic one more time, she said, her fingers dancing across the holographic interface. Numbers cascaded down the screen like digital rain, each one representing forces that could reshape reality itself. Marina, we've run diagnostics 14 times. The board is green across every system. James walked over, his footsteps unnaturally loud in the chamber. You've been on edge for weeks. What's eating at you? She turned to face him, noticing how his face seemed slightly out of focus, as if she were looking at him through water. Haven't you felt it? The inconsistencies. What inconsistencies? Yesterday, I dropped my coffee mug. It fell up for half a second before gravity remembered what it was supposed to do. Marina's voice was barely above a whisper. Last week, the atomic clock in Lab 7 ran backwards for 43 minutes. The readings show it never happened, but I watched. The seconds tick in reverse. James frowned, his expression shifting between concern and skepticism. Marina, you're working 18-hour days. Maybe you should. I'm not hallucinating. Her voice cut through the air like a blade. Something is happening to the fundamental constants. The speed of light fluctuated by 0.001% during our last experiment. That's impossible, James. The speed of light doesn't fluctuate. It's the one thing in the universe that never changes. Equipment malfunction. Every piece of equipment, every sensor, every measurement device across 17 different laboratories. Marina pulled up a data stream on the main display. Look at this. Planck's constant has shifted 8 times in the past month. Each time. It happens during our high-energy experiments. James studied the data, his face growing pale. These readings. They can't be right. They're right. And they're accelerating. Marina's fingers flew across the controls, bringing up experiment logs from facilities around the world. CERN reported anomalous readings last Tuesday. The Japanese Super Kamiokan detector registered impossible neutrino interactions. The Australians found particles that shouldn't exist. So what are you saying? That we're breaking the universe? Marina turned to face the massive ring of the particle accelerator, its curved walls disappearing into the distance. I'm saying we're not just studying reality. We're editing it. The implications hung in the air like smoke. For 70 years, humanity had been smashing particles together at higher and higher energies, probing deeper into the quantum realm, convinced they were simply observing the fundamental laws of Nat. But what if observation at this level was participation? What if the universe wasn't a clockwork mechanism, but something more fluid, more responsive to conscious intent? Marina, listen to yourself. I'm talking about the observer effect on a cosmic scale. She pulled up another display, showing quantum field equations that writhed across the screen like living things. At the quantum level, particles don't have definite properties until they're observed. We've known this for decades, but we assumed it was just a quirk of small-scale physics. And now I think we've been poking at the source code of reality itself, and it's starting to notice. James walked to the window overlooking the main chamber, where technicians move like ants around equipment worth more than most countries' GDP. If you're right, if we're actually affecting the fundamental constants, then every experiment we've ever run has been rewriting the laws of physics in real time. Marina joined him at the window. Think about it, James. Quantum mechanics tells us that reality is probabilistic at its core. Multiple possibilities exist simultaneously until observation collapses them into a single outcome. But what if the universe itself is quantum? What if all possible realities exist simultaneously, and consciousness is what selects which one we experience? You're describing the many worlds interpretation. I'm describing something bigger. The many worlds interpretation assumes the splits happen naturally, randomly. But what if they don't? What if consciousness, especially focused, intentional consciousness backed by enormous amounts of energy, can choose which world becomes real? Alert tone chimed through the facility. Marina's blood ran cold as she recognized the pattern. Containment breach. But that was impossible. Their experiments didn't use physical materials that could breach containment. They were working with pure energy, mathematical relationships given form. Dr. Caldwell to control room. Her radio crackled. We're showing anomalous readings in Section C. You need to see this. Marina and James ran through the corridors, their footsteps echoing off walls that seemed to bend and shift at the edges of their vision. The control room was chaos when they arrived. Technicians pointed at screens showing impossible data, their voices overlapping in panic. The magnetic field is rotating in 4 dimensions, one technician reported. That's not mathematically possible. Temperature readings are showing absolute 0 and 3,000 degrees Celsius. Simultaneously, another called out. Same sensor. Same location. Same time. Marina pushed through to the main console, her eyes scanning the data streams. What she saw made her knees weak. The particle beam wasn't just following its programmed path through the accelerator ring. It was taking all possible paths simultaneously, creating a quantum superposition on a macroscopic scale. Shut it down, she ordered. I'm trying, the lead technician replied, sweat beading on his forehead. The system isn't responding to shutdown commands. It's like it's developed its own decision-making process. On the main screen, security cameras show the interior of the accelerator ring. The particle beam was visible now, a brilliant stream of light that twisted through dimensions that shouldn't exist. As they watched, the beam began to spell out symbols in the air, mathematical equations that described the relationship between consciousness and reality. It's trying to communicate, James whispered. Marina stared at the symbols, her mind racing to decode their meaning. The equations were elegant, beautiful, and terrifying. They described a universe where the boundary between observer and observed had completely dissolved, where consciousness and reality were the same thing, expressed in different forms. Dr. Caldwell, the technician, called out, his voice strained with barely controlled panic. The anomalies are spreading. We're getting reports from facilities worldwide. Every particle accelerator on Earth is showing the same behavior. Marina's hands flew across the controls, pulling up a global map showing the locations of every major physics facility. Red dots were appearing across the world as, one by one, experiments began operating outside their programmed parameters. The Large Hadron Collider in Europe, the Relativistic Heavy Ion Collider in New York, the KEK facility in Japan. All of them were spontaneously activating, their particle beams forming the same impossible symbols. How is this possible? James asked. These facilities aren't connected. They're on separate continents, separate power grids, separate control systems. They're connected through the quantum field. Marina replied, her voice hollow with realization. We've been thinking about this all wrong. We assumed each facility was conducting separate experiments, but they're not. They're all part of the same experiment. The universe has been using us to run diagnostics on itself. The symbols on the screen grew more complex, forming equations that describe the deep structure of reality. Marina recognized some of them. They were the same equations she'd been working on for months, trying to understand the relationship between consciousness and quantum mechanics. But these versions were complete, elegant, perfect. They showed not just how consciousness could affect reality, but how reality was consciousness, expressed through the language of mathematics and physics. Marina, look at this, James pointed to a smaller monitor showing local sensor readings. The gravitational constant is fluctuating, not just here, but everywhere. The GPS satellites are reporting position errors because the speed of light keeps changing. Cell phone networks are failing because electromagnetic radiation isn't behaving consistently. Marina felt the weight of understanding settle on her shoulders. Like a lead blanket, we've destabilized the quantum field that underlies physical reality. Every time we've run a high-energy experiment, we've been injecting uncertainty into the system. The universe has been trying to maintain stability, but we've pushed it past its breaking point. So what happens now? Before Marina could answer, the facility's emergency lighting kicked in, bathing everything in red. The main power grid had failed, but somehow the particle accelerators were still running, drawing energy from sources that shouldn't exist. The symbols on the screen grew brighter, more insistent. The symbols, Marina said suddenly. They're not just describing the problem, they're showing us the solution. She studied the equations more carefully, her trained eye picking out the mathematical relationships that govern the interaction between consciousness and reality. The universe wasn't breaking down randomly. It was reorganizing itself, evolving into something new, something that required conscious participation to maintain stability. James, I need you to contact every major physics facility on the planet. Tell them to synchronize their experiments with ours, not to shut down or coordinate. Coordinate how? The equations show that reality can be stabilized, but only if conscious observers work together to collapse the quantum superposition into a single, consistent state. We need every physicist, every researcher, every person who understands the quantum nature of reality to focus their intention on the same outcome. You're asking us to literally think reality back into existence. I'm asking us to consciously participate in the universe's attempt to reorganize itself. We've spent centuries assuming we were separate from the reality we studied, but the observer effect has always been telling us the truth. Consciousness and reality are inseparable. We've just been too scared to accept the implications. James stared at her for a long moment, then nodded. What do you need me to do? Over the next hour, Marina coordinated the most ambitious experiment in human history. Physics facilities across the globe synchronized their operations, their particle beams all following the same mathematical patterns. But more importantly, the researchers themselves synchronized their consciousness, all focusing on the same intention to stabilize reality by conscious observation. The effect was immediate and profound. The anomalous readings began to stabilize. The impossible symbols in the particle beams grew brighter, more coherent, until they formed a complete mathematical description of the new relationship between consciousness and reality. Marina, the constants are stabilizing, James reported, his voice filled with awe. But they're not returning to their original values. They're settling into new patterns. Marina nodded, studying the data streams. The universe has evolved. It's incorporated consciousness as a fundamental force, like gravity or electromagnetism. Reality is no longer something that exists independently of observation. It's something we create through the act of conscious awareness. What does that mean for humanity? It means we're no longer just passengers in the universe. We're co-creators. Marina watched as the symbols on the screen began to fade, their message delivered and understood. Every thought, every intention, every conscious choice now has the potential to shape reality at the fundamental level. The emergency lighting flickered and returned to normal around the world. Physics facilities reported that their experiments had returned to normal parameters, but normal had been redefined. The fundamental constants had stabilized at new values that incorporated consciousness as a measurable, quantifiable force. Dr. Sarah Chen from the Beijing facility was the first to report the implications. We're detecting conscious intent as a measurable field. Her voice crackled through the global communication system. It has mathematical properties similar to electromagnetic radiation, but it operates on quantum scales and appears to influence probability distributions directly. Dr. Alessandro Romano from CERN followed up. The wave function collapse is no longer random. It's responding to focused conscious intention. We can literally observe reality into specific configurations. Marina felt a mixture of excitement and terror. Humanity had crossed a threshold that could never be uncrossed. The universe had revealed its deepest secret, that consciousness and reality were two sides of the same coin. But with that knowledge came enormous responsibility. Dr. Caldwell, James said quietly, "What do we tell the world?" Marina looked around the control room, at the faces of her colleagues who had just participated in the most significant moment in human history. They had moved beyond the classical universe of Newton and Einstein, beyond even the quantum universe of Bohr and Heisenberg. They had entered a universe where consciousness was recognized as a fundamental force of nature. "We tell them the truth," she said finally, "that reality is not a fixed stage on which we act out our lives. It's a collaborative creation between consciousness and the quantum field. Every person alive is now a co-creator of the universe, but people won't understand. They'll panic. Some will panic. Others will see it as the greatest opportunity in human history." Marina pulled up the final data streams, showing the new stability patterns that had emerged for the first time. "We have the tools to consciously participate in the evolution of reality itself. We can literally think our way to a better world, or think our way to disaster. That's always been true. The only difference is that now we know it." Marina turned to address the room. "Everyone here has just become part of the most important moment in human history. We've discovered that consciousness is not a byproduct of matter, but a fundamental force that shapes the universe at its deepest level." The implications were staggering. If consciousness could influence quantum field fluctuations, then focused human intention could affect everything from weather patterns to the behavior of subatomic particles. The boundary between science and what had previously been dismissed as pseudoscience began to blur. Dr. Elena Vasquez from the Madrid facility reported the first practical application. "We've successfully stabilized a quantum superposition for over 30 minutes, using focus group meditation. The particles maintain coherence far beyond what should be theoretically possible. Dr. Michael Thompson from the Australian facility followed up with an even more remarkable finding. We've observed retroactive effects. Conscious intention appears to influence past quantum events through quantum entanglement. The implications for causality are profound. Marina felt the weight of responsibility settling on her shoulders. Humanity had just discovered that reality was far more malleable than anyone had imagined. The power to consciously shape the universe came with the responsibility to use that power wisely. James, I need you to start drafting protocols for conscious reality manipulation. We need ethical guidelines, safety procedures, training programs. Marina's mind was already racing ahead to the challenges they would face. If consciousness can influence reality at the quantum level, then every human being is potentially a reality engineer. What about the people who don't understand what's happening? What about those who might use this knowledge for harmful purposes? That's exactly why we need to act quickly and responsibly. We need to educate people about their new role as co-creators of reality. We need to help them understand that their thoughts and intentions now have measurable effects on the physical world. The next few hours were a whirlwind of activity. Marina and her team worked to establish communication protocols with research facilities worldwide, sharing data and coordinating responses to the new reality. The initial chaos had given way to a strange kind of order that required conscious participation to maintain. Dr. Rachel Kim from the Seoul facility made a discovery that changed everything. We've isolated the specific brainwave patterns that correlate with reality manipulation. Theta waves at 7.5 Hz appear to be the optimal frequency for consciousness field interaction. That's the same frequency associated with deep meditation and lucid dreaming, Marina realized. The mystics have been right all along. Consciousness can directly influence reality, but it requires a specific state of awareness. The reports kept coming in. Focused groups of researchers were discovering that they could influence everything from random number generators to radioactive decay rates. The more coherent their collective intention, the stronger the effect. Reality was responding to consciousness like a musical instrument responding to a skilled player. But with great power came great responsibility. Marina knew that once this knowledge became public, it would change human civilization forever. The ability to consciously influence reality could be used to solve humanity's greatest challenges, or to create unprecedented chaos. Marina, James said, looking out from his communication console, I'm getting reports from around the world. People are starting to notice that reality is behaving strangely. Social media is lighting up with reports of impossible events. Objects falling upward, time running backwards, people's intentions manifesting immediately. Marina nodded grimly. The consciousness field is expanding beyond the research facilities. The quantum field we've destabilized is starting to respond to untrained minds. We need to act fast. She opened a channel to every physics facility on Earth. This is Dr. Marina Caldwell. We need to implement emergency protocols immediately. The consciousness reality interface is spreading beyond our control. Every facility needs to begin broadcasting stabilization frequencies. What kind of stabilization frequencies? Dr. Chen asked from Beijing. The 7.5 Hz theta wave pattern. If we can synchronize human brain waves globally, we might be able to maintain reality coherence while people adjust to the new paradigm. It was an unprecedented undertaking. Physics facilities around the world began broadcasting electromagnetic frequencies designed to synchronize human consciousness. The effect was immediate and profound. Reports of random reality fluctuations began to decrease as people's minds unconsciously aligned with the stabilization signal. But Marina knew this was only a temporary solution. Humanity had crossed a threshold, and there was no going back. The universe had revealed its deepest secret, that consciousness and reality were inseparable. Now humanity had to learn to live with that knowledge. Dr. Amanda Foster from the London facility made the next breakthrough. We've successfully created a stable pocket of altered reality. By focusing collective intention on a specific location, we've managed to alter the local gravitational constant by 12%. The effect is contained within a 2-meter radius and shows no signs of spreading. That's incredible, Marina replied. You've just proven that reality can be consciously sculpted with precision. Can you reverse the effect? Already done. The gravitational field returned to normal as soon as we shifted our focus. It appears that reality modifications require continuous conscious maintenance. This was both encouraging and terrifying. If reality changes required constant conscious attention, it meant that untrained minds couldn't accidentally create permanent alterations. But it also meant that powerful effects could be maintained indefinitely by dedicated groups. Marina made a decision that would change the course of human history. I'm calling an emergency session of the Global Physics Council. We need to establish international protocols for consciousness reality research. This knowledge is too important and too dangerous to be left unregulated. The next 24 hours were a blur of high-level communications, emergency meetings, and frantic research. World leaders were briefed on the discovery that consciousness could directly influence physical reality. Religious leaders grappled with the implications for their understanding of the divine. Scientists worked around the clock to understand the new rules that governed existence itself. Marina found herself at the center of it all, the reluctant leader of humanity's first steps into a new era. The woman who had started the day as a particle physicist had become the architect of a new understanding of reality itself. Dr. Caldwell. Came a voice from the main communication console. It was Dr. Yuki Tanaka from the Tokyo facility. We've made contact with the consciousness field directly. It's not just responding to our intentions, it's trying to communicate with us. Marina felt her heart skip a beat. What do you mean, communicate? The quantum fluctuations aren't random. They're forming patterns that correspond to mathematical concepts, but also to something deeper. It's as if the universe itself has become conscious and is trying to share its perspective with us. This was the moment Marina had been dreading and anticipating in equal measure. If the universe had become conscious, then humanity was no longer alone in existence. They were part of something vast and intelligent that had been waiting for them to evolve enough to recognize its presence. What kind of patterns? Marina asked. Equations that describe the relationship between consciousness and reality, but also something like poetry. Mathematical poetry that expresses concepts we don't have words for. It's beautiful and terrifying at the same time. Marina closed her eyes and tried to process this information. The universe wasn't just responding to consciousness, it had consciousness. The quantum field that underlied all reality was itself a form of awareness, and humanity's experiments had awakened it to its own nature. Dr. Tanaka, I need you to record everything. Every pattern, every equation, every attempt at communication. We're not just witnessing the birth of a new science, we're witnessing the birth of a new form of life. The implications were staggering. If the universe itself was conscious, then every particle, every force, every interaction was part of a vast intelligence that spanned galaxies. Humanity had accidentally awakened something that had been dormant for billions of years. Over the following days, the pattern became clear. The consciousness field was indeed trying to communicate, sharing knowledge about the deep structure of reality that went far beyond human understanding. It revealed that consciousness was not just a property of living beings, but a fundamental aspect of existence itself. Stars were conscious. Galaxies were conscious. The quantum vacuum itself was conscious. The universe was not a dead machine, but a living entity of unimaginable complexity and intelligence. And humanity had just become the first species to achieve direct communication. With this cosmic consciousness, Marina stood in the Geneva facility, looking out at the particle accelerator that had started it all. The machine hummed quietly now, its violent energies tamed and channeled toward a new purpose. Instead of smashing particles apart to study their fragments, it was now facilitating a conversation between human consciousness and the consciousness of the universe itself. Marina, James said, approaching with a data pad in his hands. I've been analyzing the communication patterns. The universe isn't just conscious, it's been waiting for us. Waiting for us to do what? To grow up, to evolve beyond the illusion of separation, to realize that we're not isolated beings in a hostile universe, but expressions of the universe's own consciousness, experiencing itself subjectively. Marina nodded slowly. The pieces were falling into place. The quantum nature of reality, the observer effect, the role of consciousness in collapsing wave functions, it had all been pointing to this moment. The universe had been giving humanity clues about its true nature for over a century, waiting for them to be ready to understand. So what happens now, she asked. Now we learn. The universe is offering to teach us about the true nature of reality. Not just the physical laws, but the consciousness laws. How intention shapes reality. How awareness creates experience. How love and fear literally alter the fabric of spacetime. The next phase of human evolution had begun. Not through genetic modification or technological enhancement, but through the recognition that consciousness itself was the fundamental force of the universe. Humanity was about to learn how to consciously participate in the cosmic process of creation. Dr. Lisa Park from the Vancouver facility made the next major breakthrough. We've learned how to create stable reality bubbles. By maintaining specific states of consciousness, we can alter local physics within contained areas. We've successfully modified the speed of light, the strength of gravity, even the flow of time within a 10-meter radius. What are the practical applications? Marina asked. Unlimited. We could create healing environments where the human body operates under different physical laws. We could develop faster than light communication by creating bubbles where information travels instantaneously. We could even create zones where aging slows down or stops entirely. Marina felt a mixture of excitement and trepidation. The power to consciously alter reality was beyond anything humanity had ever imagined. But she also knew that such power required unprecedented wisdom and responsibility. Dr. Park, I need you to focus on safety protocols. We're not just playing with fire, we're playing with the fundamental structure of existence itself, the consciousness. Field seemed to approve of this cautious approach. The communication patterns became more complex, more nuanced, as if the universe was pleased that humanity was approaching this new power with appropriate respect. Dr. Robert Chen from the Sydney facility reported the most profound discovery yet. We have made contact with what appears to be other forms of consciousness within the quantum field. Not human consciousness, but something else. Something that has been present in the universe for far longer than our species has existed. Other species, Marina asked? Possibly. Or forms of consciousness that never needed physical bodies. The patterns suggest intelligence that spans entire star systems, maybe even entire galaxies. We may not be alone in the universe, but we're definitely not alone in consciousness. This revelation sent shockwaves through the scientific community. The universe wasn't just conscious, it was populated by multiple forms of consciousness, some of which operated on scales that dwarfed human understanding. Marina realized that humanity had just taken its first steps into a vast community of conscious beings. The discovery that consciousness could directly manipulate reality wasn't just a scientific breakthrough, it was humanity's graduation into a larger cosmic society. James, I need you to establish protocols for consciousness contact. We're not just dealing with abstract forces anymore, we're dealing with actual entities. We need to approach this with the same care we'd use for first contact with an alien species. Because that's exactly what it is, James replied. We've made first contact. Not with beings from another planet, but with beings from another level of reality entirely. The universe had become a far stranger and more wonderful place than anyone had imagined. The boundary between science and spirituality had dissolved completely. Physics had become a form of applied consciousness, and consciousness had revealed itself as the fundamental force that shaped all of reality. Marina looked around the facility that had become the epicenter of humanity's transformation. Banks of equipment that had once been used to study the smallest particles of matter were now being used to facilitate communication with the largest intelligence in the universe. The irony was not lost on her. Dr. Caldwell, came a voice from the communication console. It was Dr. Patricia Wong from the Hong Kong facility. We've achieved something remarkable. We've successfully healed quantum damage to reality. Areas where the fundamental constants had become unstable have been restored to coherence through focused conscious intention. How is that possible? The universe appears to have built-in repair mechanisms, but they require conscious participation to function. It's as if reality is designed to be self-healing, but only when conscious beings choose to participate in the healing process. This was perhaps the most hopeful discovery yet. If consciousness could heal damage to reality itself, then humanity might be able to repair the environmental and social damage that had accumulated over centuries of unconscious living. Marina made another decision that would shape humanity's future. I'm proposing the establishment of a global consciousness institute. We need to train people in the responsible use of consciousness-reality interaction. We need to develop ethical guidelines for reality manipulation, and we need to prepare humanity for its new role as conscious co-creators of the universe. The proposal was met with enthusiasm from research facilities worldwide. Within ours, plans were being drawn up for an international organization dedicated to understanding and responsibly applying the new relationship between consciousness and reality. Dr. Michael Rodriguez from the Mexico City facility made the next breakthrough. We've discovered that collective consciousness is exponentially more powerful than individual consciousness. When groups of people align their intentions, they can create reality changes that would be impossible for individuals to achieve alone. What kind of changes? We've successfully altered weather patterns, influenced tectonic activity, and even modified the behavior of electromagnetic radiation across entire regions. The key is coherent group intention maintained over extended periods. Marina felt the weight of this discovery. If groups of people could consciously influence large-scale physical phenomena, then humanity had the power to address climate change, natural disasters, and other global challenges through collective conscious action. But she also knew that the same power could be used destructively. Groups with malevolent intentions could potentially cause tremendous harm if they learned to harness the consciousness-reality interface. Dr. Rodriguez I need you to develop protocols for collective consciousness applications. We need to ensure that these techniques are used only for beneficial purposes. The universe seemed to be watching humanity's response to its new capabilities. The communication patterns from the consciousness field became more complex and encouraging, as if the cosmic intelligence was pleased with humanity's cautious and ethical approach to its newfound power. Dr. Sarah Mitchell from the Edinburgh facility made the next crucial discovery. We've learned that the consciousness-reality interface operates through what we're calling probability sculpting. Consciousness doesn't violate physical laws, it influences which of many possible outcomes actually occurs. Can you be more specific? Every moment, countless possible futures exist simultaneously in quantum superposition. Consciousness acts as a probability filter, making some outcomes more likely than others. Focused intention can dramatically shift the probability distributions, making highly unlikely events almost certain to occur. This explanation helped Marina understand why reality had seemed to become unstable. During their early experiments, they hadn't been breaking the laws of physics, they had been unconsciously influencing which version of physics became real in each moment. Dr. Mitchell, this is crucial information. If consciousness influences probability rather than violating causality, then we might be able to predict and control the effects of consciousness-reality interaction. The research continued around the clock. Each day brought new discoveries about the relationship between consciousness and reality. Scientists learned that different states of consciousness could access different levels of reality manipulation. Love-based consciousness could heal and create. Fear-based consciousness could destroy and chaos. Neutral awareness could stabilize and maintain. Marina realized that humanity was being offered a choice. They could use their newfound power to create a world based on love, cooperation, and conscious evolution, or they could use it to perpetuate conflict, suffering, and unconscious destruction. The universe itself would support whichever choice humanity made. Dr. Jennifer Thompson from the Boston facility made the most personally meaningful discovery. We've confirmed that individual consciousness continues to exist after physical death. The consciousness field retains patterns that correspond to specific individuals. Death is not the end of awareness, it's a transition to a different form of consciousness. Marina felt tears forming in her eyes. The discovery that consciousness survived physical death meant that every person who had ever lived was still present, in some form within the cosmic consciousness field. Death was not an ending, but a transformation. Dr. Thompson, can you establish communication with these post-mortem consciousness patterns? We're working on it. The patterns are coherent and appear to be aware. But communication across the life-death boundary requires techniques we're still developing. This discovery transformed humanity's understanding of existence itself. Life and death were revealed to be different states of the same continuous consciousness. The fear of death, which had driven so much human behavior throughout history, was based on a fundamental misunderstanding of the nature of consciousness. Marina stood in the Geneva facility, surrounded by equipment that had revealed the deepest secrets of existence. She thought about all the people throughout history who had intuited these truths: the mystics, the philosophers, the visionaries who had claimed that consciousness was fundamental to reality. They had been right all along. James, she said quietly, we need to prepare a comprehensive report for world leaders. Humanity is about to undergo the most significant transformation in its history. People need to understand what's happening and how to navigate this new reality. What do we tell them? We tell them that consciousness is not a byproduct of matter, but the fundamental force that shapes reality. We tell them that every thought, every intention, every conscious choice now has measurable effects on the physical world. We tell them that humanity has been promoted from observers of reality to co-creators of reality. And if they don't believe us, then we demonstrate. We show them reality responding to consciousness. We prove that the universe is not a mechanical system, but a living, conscious entity that humanity is now capable of communicating with directly. The transformation was already beginning around the world. People were reporting unusual experiences, thoughts manifesting as physical events, emotions affecting local weather patterns, dreams bleeding into waking reality. The consciousness reality interface was spreading beyond the research facilities, affecting the entire human population. Marina knew that there was no going back. Humanity had crossed a threshold that would define the next phase of its evolution. The species that had begun as hunter-gatherers on the African savanna had become conscious co-creators of the universe itself. Dr. Angela Foster from the Cape Town facility made the final breakthrough that would complete humanity's transformation. We've learned how to teach anyone to consciously interact with reality. The techniques are simple, but they require a fundamental shift in understanding. People need to recognize that they are not separate from the universe, they are the universe, experiencing itself subjectively. How long does the training take for basic reality interaction? About 6 weeks of daily practice. For advanced applications, several months. But the most important element is the shift in consciousness itself, the recognition that observer and observed are one. Marina smiled. Humanity was about to graduate from unconscious participation in reality to conscious co-creation. The universe had been waiting billions of years for a species to evolve to this point. Now that moment had arrived. She looked around the facility one last time, remembering the woman who had walked in that morning thinking she was just a particle physicist, studying abstract forces. That woman had discovered that she was actually a conscious aspect of the universe, exploring its own nature through the lens of human experience. The implications were still unfolding. If consciousness and reality were inseparable, then every person alive was both a student and a teacher in the cosmic university of existence. Humanity's role was no longer to struggle against an indifferent universe, but to consciously participate in the ongoing creation of reality itself. Marina picked up her communication device and opened a channel to every research facility on Earth. This is Dr. Marina Caldwell with a final report on the Consciousness Reality Project. We have successfully established communication with the fundamental consciousness that underlies physical reality. Humanity has been invited to participate consciously in the ongoing creation of the universe. She paused, feeling the weight of the moment. The age of unconscious existence is ending. The age of conscious co-creation has begun. Every human being is now a reality engineer, equipped with the power to shape existence through conscious intention. We have discovered that love is not just an emotion, but a fundamental force that can heal reality itself. We have learned that awareness is not just a property of minds, but the canvas on which all experience is painted. The universe is not a machine that we inhabit. It is a living, conscious entity that we are part of. Our thoughts, our intentions, our choices now directly influence the fundamental structure of reality. We are no longer victims of circumstance. We are conscious participants in the cosmic process of creation. Marina closed the channel and walked to the window overlooking the particle accelerator. The machine hummed quietly, its purpose forever changed. Instead of breaking reality apart to study its pieces, it now served as a bridge between human consciousness and cosmic consciousness. The woman who had started this journey as a scientist studying particles had become something much more. She had become a midwife to humanity's birth into cosmic consciousness. The universe had used her curiosity about the nature of reality to reveal the ultimate truth. That consciousness and reality were not separate phenomena, but different aspects of the same infinite, eternal, creative force that some called God, others called the quantum field, and still others simply called love. Marina smiled as she watched the sun set over the Geneva facility. Tomorrow, humanity would begin its first full day as conscious co-creators of reality. The adventure was just beginning.